Hi folks, this is Rose from In Rose's Garden, and today we're going to make a really cute small pair of earrings using the Pride and Prejudice mini mix from the Magical Mystery Bead Box's January Box Book Club. I think you're going to like these. I think they're going to be really simple but really cute, and let's turn down and work on those. Okay, so what we have here are beads from Pride and Prejudice, the mini mix. We have some elasticity. We're going to want about a foot of that. I cut a foot, even though I will only make my bracelets about 7 inches, maybe a little larger, sometimes a little smaller, but generally around 7 inches because that's an average wrist size. And even though it's only 7 inches, the beads actually end up being longer than that, and I like plenty of cord to make my knot with, so I will probably get about a foot of this out. In fact, let's do that right now. There we go, about right here. And you can cut this cord with scissors. You don't need to use your flush cutters. So this is the 1 millimeter beadle on elasticity. Now, well, we don't need to. I'm going to show you the beads first, then we'll get started. So here are our beads, and what we're going to do is we're going to put, well, these are all from Pride and Prejudice, except these two came from Anne of Green Gables. These 4 large hole spacers, well, they're larger than the normal, came from Frankenstein. And then all of the spacers except for this style came from my stash. This is the ones from the mini mix. So what we're going to do is we're going to take one of these is going to be our focal in the middle, one of the red ones. Then they're going to have these style of bead caps. Next bead is this one, and it's going to have these little copper bead caps. Then we'll have the copper beads, like so. Next is our teardrop. And since I have used this style of bead cap, this color on the top, I have got some little gold ones to go towards the bottom as well. So we'll get those out for over here. Next is another one of these style with their bead caps. Oops, not you. Well, you'll be on the next one anyway, so you might as well. So then and these will go facing this direction. And then we have these 2 spacers and 2 spacers, and then these with this. And that's where we're going to end. Now these spacers here, I'm probably going to put a little piece of rubber tubing in one side of these. Well, if it'll go on the stretch cord. I don't know if it will. But the other side is going to have the knot in it. So let's get working on this. First thing we need to do is stretch our cord. You want to give it quite a few big, strong tugs. Not so much that you're going to break it, but pretty strong nonetheless. Because if you don't stretch it now, it's going to stretch when you're in the middle of wearing it, and the beads are going to sag. So let's get it all stretched out. And I'm going to put a bead stopper on the first side. And I'm going to start stringing from right here. Now I'm going to check right now and see if my tubing will fit over the elasticity. I sort of figure it won't, but you never can tell, and if it will, we might as well plug those holes up just a touch. Oh, it is going to go on. Good. So I'm just going to cut a little bit off, about what the length of those beads are. Normally I'd put them in and cut them off, cut this off, but since there's two of them, I don't want to try and get too wiggly woggly with them. Let's see if this is big enough for these two, or if it's too big for these two. And see, that's why I didn't want to do them at the time. Looks about right, so that's good. We'll put the tubing on and then the little ones over the top of it. There's the tubing, and then these two go on over the top of that. So just like so. Now, as I say, the two on the other side are going to hold the knot, so they don't need any tubing in them. Oop. Here we are at halfway point. Now there's not a stretch bracelet's relatively easy. The biggest thing you have to remember is stretch your cord before you even get started on the beads. And then your knot, anyway, the knot I use is extremely secure. And it is a large knot, so you need something with a relatively large hole for your knot to be in. I had thought these copper beads might have a big enough hole, but when I tested them out, they did not. Come on, you, go through there. Oh, wrong hole. These are hollow, so it's sort of hard to get, unless your beading cord or wire or whatever you're using is pretty straight. You sometimes have to wiggle it around to find the other side. Now I saw it just a second ago, but it didn't come through. There we go. There she came. We'll put a bead stopper on this side and we will compare it side to side to make sure that we didn't mess anything up. Okay, looks good. So the next step we're going to make is we're going to carefully take our bead stoppers off and get hold of this tightly. And we want to stretch the end cord some. You can stretch the regular cord while you're at it. It's under the beads, but since you already stretched them, you shouldn't need to stretch it anymore. But you do want to stretch these. So now we're going to make our knot. In order to make the knot, you need to get hold it with your fingers like this, stretch it some more, go all the way around both fingers, take your two threads and put them through where your two fingers come together, and do that a second time. Now that you've got that done, pull the one finger out and pull it tight onto the other finger. Now slide the knot off of your other finger while you're pulling tightly on it. There we go. Now see, it's right here. And this is a secure knot. See how I stretched it and it didn't move a bit? So that's how those work. Now we're going to get some Hypo cement and put a drop of Hypo cement right there. Stretch it so you can get to the knot easier. Knot's already going inside the beads, so we want to stretch it around so we can get to it. I hope Hypo cement's already trying to come out, so we want to get that on there. Okay, close your Hypo cement up. It will keep drizzling out until you get this little tube inside there. So now I use Hypo cement. It works really well for a stretch bracelet. It dries really soft, so it doesn't create any frictions, and it doesn't make your string brittle. Then cut off your excess of your line. See, it's already going in there and making itself at home, which is what we want it to do. We actually want it to sort of go over both of them so that that glue will stick into both and keep them stuck together. But then you cut off the extra little bit. See how I've got just a little bit left there? Cut this off. Oops, it didn't want to cut, did it? We'll leave that little bit there and take our extra string off. Now see, I had this much extra string, but if you remember when I was tying the knot, that extra little string was needed because it needed to go around my fingers. And if we hadn't had it, it would have been extremely hard to try and hook those up. So even though that wastes about, oh, I don't know, 4 or 5 inches of cord, I'd rather waste that cord than get to the end and not be able to knot it because I didn't have enough cord. So we've placed our knot inside these beads with the Hypo cement, and hopefully that will tighten up good, and it will stay in there pretty good inside those two. I used 2 because I didn't think that one would be big enough for that knot, because it is a big knot and those are thin beads. So see, I've got it, it's sitting in both. You can tell because of the way they're sticking together there. And actually the tail is sticking out still just a little bit, so let's pull it inside. Let's get her in here. So we don't want the tail sticking out. There we go. There we go. So there's our bracelet. Didn't that turn out pretty? Now, because of the way I've got it made, it's got sort of 2 different focals. You could go this front as the focal, or you could go this as the focal. Either way, it's very pretty. So, like I say, all of these beads, other than my spacers, are from Pride and Prejudice. These 2 beads, these 2 copper beads, came from Anne of Green Gables, and our little big beads, big hole beads we used for our knotting was from Frankenstein. So even though most of it was from Pride and Prejudice, we did a little bit of conglomeration to finish her up. So isn't she pretty? I think she's really pretty. So folks, there is our bracelet made from Pride and Prejudice, and the few little beads from Anne of Green Gables, and the few little beads from Frankenstein. Now we're not going to stretch it because the Hypo cement is probably still a little bit wet, and we don't want to pull our knot out of its beads. So there it is though, our bracelet we made, stretch bracelet with Pride and Prejudice. You know what? We never did check to see what its size finished up at. Let's do that. Looks like it's right on 7 inches. Now, because of the way I've got it made, this piece could be the focal here with the copper beads on either side of this. Or, oh, you couldn't see that. Let's do it again. So with the copper beads on either side could be the focal. Or you could wear it this way with these little beads being the focal. It's a nice thing that you can switch it around if you want. So again, there is our bracelet. Isn't it pretty? Using the Pride and Prejudice bead mix from the Jesse James Beads Magical Mystery Bead Box Book Club. This has been Rose from In Rose's Garden, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye.